Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and this one's awesome. It's with Nick Priedite from Pre-Diite Barbecue in Los Alamos, California. They're open 3 Saturdays a month. One Saturday, it's a lineup style. It's Central Texas style barbecue. So they have a lineup style one Saturday, and then 2 other Saturdays are pre-order, and they have pre-order from their Instagram. There's a link, and you can pre-order and pick it up there. They're right outside of Bell's Restaurant in Los Alamos. And he talks about, too, there's a lot that we talk about, but he does talk about the perfect experience where you could stay in Los Alamos to really experience the area. And then if you came on a Friday, he's cooking Friday night, so there's the hang capabilities. And then the next day, on Saturday, get your barbecue. But on that Friday night, you could eat at Bell's Restaurant. This one's awesome because he grew up in Northern California, went to school at UC Santa Barbara, then stayed in Santa Barbara in the Santa Barbara restaurant scene, the higher end scene, and learned all about food and seasonal ingredients. And he brings that to his barbecue situation. And we talk about how he started his little side business that turned into what it is today, and his trips to Texas, and how that shaped his understanding of what Central Texas barbecue really is. I know you're really going to want to try his food. It's worth the trip. Santa Barbara is not too far from Los Angeles, and there's another hour and a half. It's a beautiful drive, gorgeous. Like he said, once you get up there, it's vines and cows, and it's just beautiful scenery. If you're in San Francisco or San Jose or somewhere up there, you can come south and visit him and get a real taste of what California and Central California is all about. I can't thank Nick enough for taking the time, and after talking to him, I just can't believe that I haven't been up there and visited him. And after you listen to it, I know I've said it before in this intro, you're going to want to visit. You're going to want to try his food. And the Kevin's Barbecue Joints podcast and YouTube show is brought to you by Flores Tortillas. They're out of Whitney, Texas. Micah Wyatt putting out tortillas with smoked beef tallow. You can order them in a dozen and have them shipped all across the United States. They usually drop on Monday around 10 a.m. Texas time, Central time. They sell out pretty quickly. They're so good. And there's a number of barbecue spots across Texas that carry them for their tacos, or they sell them in their case by the dozen. Again, that's Flores Tortillas and florestortillas.com. And if you're digging these, please subscribe. That way you don't miss out. I'm putting out at least one of these per week, if not two. Hope to bring you guys interesting people like Nick. I have a website at kevinsbbqjoints.com. Links to all my podcasts and YouTube versions of things, as well as crazy lists about what knives barbecue joints use, honing tools, done a bunch of cool stuff. I'm crazy about organizing things, especially in the barbecue world. But at the end, stay safe. Visit your local barbecue spot. Well, Nick, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Very well, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, and also I apologize for not getting a chance to visit yet. But as we talked off camera, I'm going to be able to hopefully very soon. But because you're not that far, so I want to get to like your background. And did you grow up in that area? Because you said you're in San Ynez Valley right now. Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in San Jose in a very small town south of there called Morgan Hill.
What was that like? You could be
man, oh man, I can hear my boys I grew up with hollering right now about what we were doing. It was good, man. It's a quiet town. There's like, some farms circling because we're close to Hollister and Gilroy, so there's a lot of farms.
Okay. Okay, that area.
And then but it's like kind of right on the cusp between like farmland and the city. So like you can drive 10 minutes north and you're into San Jose, 10 minutes south, you're into farmland. So it's kind of this in-between wedge, if you will.
Do you get back up there ever?
Man, I was up in the city for a game a couple weeks ago, but I don't really, kind of just cooking a lot, so I don't really have the chance to get up there.
Yeah. So how did you get into cooking? Did you go straight from high school to restaurants, or did you go to college somewhere out there?
Yeah, I graduated. I have my bachelor's from UCSB.
Oh, I didn't know you went to. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm a gaucho holler.
Yeah. I have many friends that went there.
I made it out alive.
Yeah, I know. That's Isla Vista and all that. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's great. But I started cooking really young with my mother, actually.
Okay.
She would kind of pull us into the kitchen. She was a big foodie. She really wasn't like trained professionally, but she just had a big interest in cooking, and she had a knack for it. She cooked a lot too, and she was a gardener, so we always had a little garden in the back.
Nice.
With all kinds of fruits and veggies and stuff. So I was put on dish duty pretty early, obviously, and then that kind of graduated as I got older to some knife handling and boiling stocks and stuff like that, until probably in my early teenage years, she was asking me what's for dinner.
So she was running a little kitchen at your house. It seems like.
Yeah, man. I mean, we'd read shit like the Sopranos cookbook. You know what I mean?
No, that's cool though. Do you have a favorite recipe that she made, or is there anything that you make now that she used to make a lot? Like for your
Pesto.
pesto?
Pesto, man. Veggies grilled with pesto and steamed white rice is like nostalgia on a plate for me.
Wow, that's cool. Are you gonna weave that ever into your menu somehow?
It's interesting you say that. Like I've been reading a lot about like California heritage and like cooking and like cuisine and like how like California food has been shaped, and it's really fascinating because I kind of just assumed because you see a lot of like Mexican influence, but really there's so much more like Portuguese and Spanish, Chinese and Japanese. So I'm starting to kind of teach myself a little bit more about California's history. And I think with our food, what our idea is to like kind of like highlight what California is from this like historical heritage background.
Wow.
So the answer is yes. Lies a long-winded answer for yes.
No, but that's the answer I was hoping for. Is that because then when did you start? When you went to Santa Barbara, did you work at restaurants at all, or did you have a job that at that one pizza place that everybody went to, or?
Oh my God, no, I just got trashed there. I started working at a restaurant when I was 18. When I had just gotten up here to go to college, and I was working with a bunch of buddies at this place called the Boathouse in Santa Barbara. This really beautiful, like beachside joint. And I was bussing and running food, kind of at the bottom of the pecking order, and spent 9 years at that restaurant.
Really?
And met some incredible,
awesome.
Met some incredible people, which is pretty unheard of in the restaurant world.
It is, 9 years, like almost any job, but a restaurant job especially.
Yeah. So that was like my first intro, and I pretty much once I was leaving that restaurant, which was a couple years ago, I was bartending. I had waited tables. I had almost worked every position other than being a manager there.
Did you live in Santa Barbara at the time?
Taught me quite a bit. Yeah, I was living in Santa Barbara at the time, so I learned quite a bit working at that restaurant because it's just high volume. It was very busy. That kind of got me into bartending, which then kind of got me. I kind of have a little bit of an addictive personality when it comes to teaching myself new stuff.
Which is
I geek out on I geek out on things. I start like kind of obsessing a little bit. So I kind of started learning about bartending, and then I started working at another restaurant called the Lark.
Where is the Lark? That sounds
Lark's
so familiar.
In the downtown area of Santa Barbara, which is run by Jason Paluska, a chef who's actually from the Houston area. And we fostered a pretty great relationship there. But I was working alongside him, running the bar program, and he taught me a lot about, because he's got a pretty refined palate and work, in the Michael Mina group. So he's a very well-trained chef, and he kind of got me up to date, like with like seasonality, flavor profiles, and things like that. So I started spinning this program at that restaurant, which is very like seasonally driven. So we would have cocktails changing every other week with whatever we were pulling from the farmer's market. So that got me really cued in on like.
That's a big deal. That's interesting. And he's kind of a mentor, it sounds like.
Yeah. And he's from Houston, man. So he loves barbecue. Yeah. So it's funny, when I first started working at that restaurant, I was like this hot shot. Yeah, we're back. It's kind of like this, like a hot shot, snotty bartender walking in the door, and it's like that back of house, front of house rivalry. It's like they never really want to like, let their guard down. But he had heard that I was doing these barbecue pop-ups. This was in its kind of earlier infancy stages, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember he caught me in the walk-in." And he like just like squared up with me. He's like, "So I heard you cook barbecue." And I was waiting for this. I was waiting for this day to come because I knew he was from Texas, and I was like waiting for it. And I was like, "Yeah, yes, sir, I do." And he goes, "Is it that Santa Maria tri-tip?" And I'm like, "No, it's a little bit more like that kind of like slow smoked offset." And I think the minute I said offset, he's like, "What?" Yeah. I showed him a picture. I have pit from Drew Harper, a 650 that I'd gotten from him just maybe that year. And I showed him a picture, and he didn't want to believe it. And he's like, man, so you're cooking Texas barbecue? And I was like, well, kind of, but anyways,
wait, so let's go back just a little bit. What made you get the pit, and what was it? Did you go to Texas or something, or go to Austin, or?
No, so I continued to cook, and like, I think my palate started to really evolve working with Jason and working at the Lark and running that bar program. And I continued cooking for friends. I started doing a lot of like supper club dinners at my house.
Nice.
And this was like outside of barbecue. This was just kind of like general fare.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed cooking for people on a larger platform. And I read a lot of cookbooks. So I was just always trying to cook new things. And I'm also very impatient. And in reading all these different cookbooks and different journals, I came across like a Texas style brisket recipe. I don't know if it was in like Bon Appetit or something like that, but I was like, oh, that looks really good. You know, they always have those stylized photos. I was like, oh, I think I can do that. They had a recipe on how to cook on like a Weber kettle with like, you know, the classic, like soak your wood chips for 15 minutes and set it, you know what I mean? I'm like, I can do all that. So I got this like big, like 12-pound like packer, and I had this shitty, like rusted out Weber kettle, and I gave it a go, and it was like shoe leather, man. And I was so upset. And that kind of like sprung into me, like not taking no for an answer, I guess, for myself, you know? And
had you seen other, like,
I had no clue. I had no clue what I was doing. But I had been stumped at that point, and I didn't like being stumped.
It makes sense. Because when I was saying when I lived in Ventura, I got my first brisket. Like, I didn't know to cut it. I didn't know, like, someone shipped it out to me. I didn't, like, because that's something too. Living in California, we have no idea. We didn't have any idea.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky. I had a friend who owns a butcher shop, so I was able to get one. But I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting into.
But when you so that was the drive, like messing that piece of meat up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You like want to conquer this.
Oh yeah, and then my next phone call, I called my buddy Dan, whose father's from Texas, and I know he's got a couple smokers at his house, and he lent me his father's offset, and I started cooking briskets like out of my backyard on this borrowed Texan offset, which was you know, looking back, I thought I had like a Cadillac, you know, in my yard, but I think it was a pretty average, like
something you would find in
commodity.
Texas, like,
yeah, it's a pretty for Texas. I mean, it's pretty like commodity standard.
Yeah.
But again, it just wasn't what I was anticipating, and I knew I wasn't doing something right, and I just continued to like keep practicing and cooking and like trying new smokers, and that just kind of evolved into.
But you didn't see anything like any YouTube thing or anything? Like, this is amazing. Like, this is kind of did you just understand? You just understand?
I don't think YouTube I don't think you had like
maybe not.
You didn't have like the Franklin Masterclass or even like the Jerby. I mean, obviously not Jerby. He's doing his thing now, but like
shout out to Jerby.
Nice. Shout out Jerby, dude. That kid's
I love Johnny.
Champ.
God, I'm talking to him again. So if you have any questions for him, I'm talking to him next week. We're doing a question and answer session. So I'm gonna have answer questions from people. So we'll do.
I don't know, man. I just like cool that guy's vibe.
Yeah, I know. I love his interviews. Like how it's done.
Yeah,
like he's just like So okay, they didn't have that kind of stuff. So then,
I mean, I grew up. I was lucky. I had a wood-fired barbecue joint when I was growing up called Trail Dust Barbecue in Morgan Hill, and they did brisket, but it wasn't something you ordered much of. At least our family, we always got ribs and coleslaw and things like that. They actually were cooking on a close pit over there. I come to find out. There wasn't really any YouTube reference. It was just a lot of reading, and finally. I got a Smoky Mountain, Weber Smoky Mountain. It's like the kettle, but extended. Looks like a little bullet.
I had that.
Yeah, and then I started kind of experimenting there, and then the barbecue started to take a little bit better form, and I started it started leading me on this trail of how I can kind of start tightening everything up. Cause again, I come from more of like a food background, I think general culinary background than I do like a barbecue background.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of questions from like my chef friends on like how to approach, and then trying to weave that with like this barbecue information that I was like getting my hands on.
And you knew
So
you had to cook it a certain amount of time to make sure it.
Well, the funny thing is like looking back, now that I think about it, I was so focused on like temperatures. I was so focused on like, okay, the stall 165, a finish internal temp of 203. You know, I was like kind of like focusing so much on those temperatures that I kind of like, I think I was losing sight of really what the process is and like the real definition of doneness.
I think a lot of people will relate to what you're just saying right now. A lot of people.
Yeah. So I had, and it was definitely like a moment for me, like in a culinary way too, because it kind of helped me like, I don't know, get myself up above the surface and like how I approach food in general. In that, you know, people hate this, but when they ask you, how do you know it's done? You just say it's done when it's done.
Yeah. No.
People hate that, to hear that, but that's such a true statement because it proves a lot of experience, knowledge, and I think intuition in what you're doing. So I was just getting my reps in and like using a thermopen, trying to figure it out. Like my trims were really, really mediocre. I don't even think I trimmed much, honestly, to start. But I entered a local competition for the Independent, which is a local journal, like newspaper. And they do this like sizzling summer barbecue contest.
I didn't. This is all news to me. I didn't know you did this. How did that turn out?
I was really happy with it, but it was really funny. Matt Ketman, who put it on, he's a journalist here in town for Food and Wine, but he was putting it on, and I was like, hey man, so I got to show up to Oak Park at 7 a.m. the day of the contest. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, this thing's going to take me 12 hours. I got to get there early and get the fire started and going. He goes, oh man, I don't know. The park's not open yet. I don't know, man. I'm like, all right, well, so I just showed up anyways, like at like dusk, and a couple bums sleeping on the bench next to me. And I'm like getting this thing fired up, doing my minion method, you know, my snake charcoal Kingsford at the bottom of the Smoky Mountain. But no, I felt really good about that cook. And like after I ended up winning.
Nice.
And it was the amateurs, not the pros.
But still, that's cool. That's got to
cool.
be a good feeling.
No, that definitely like kind of jump started me a little bit, and
takes little things like that to.
Yeah. And you know, serving food to people is it's risky business. Not from a health standard, obviously, but from, I think, putting yourself onto a plate is you know,
you're putting yourself out there completely.
Yeah, that was good for myself, my ego, and understanding that like what I'm doing is actually like getting better. And then I met a buddy of mine for a beer, I think a couple weeks later. His name's Michael Russo, and he had a fucking great pep talk for me. And he was like, man, I think you can sell this to people, and I want to help you. And I was like, nah, no way, dude, you're out of your mind. And he's like, no, man, we can, like, this is good and we can make this happen. So we ended up starting a small catering company in town that ran for a couple years, and we did great. And that's what really like helped me put my serious reps in.
It was for barbecue specifically?
Yeah, it was just barbecue. It was just, we were like, let's just do barbecue. We were doing like, I think pork shoulder and like brisket plates with like a couple different sides. I have some of those old menus like rolling around for fun, just to, like, look back at my prices. I was like, Jesus Christ, I was not making any money.
But what kind of functions were these at? Were these
man, like, well, they started like, because I worked in the industry in restaurants, like I had these friends who owned like different wine bars, restaurants, breweries. So like we'd just bounce all around town between like different restaurant patios that were closed on a certain days to different breweries that were having vendors to different wineries. Like, you know, so we just like were
hustling,
hot on the road. Yeah, honestly, hustling. And it's funny, like my buddy Mike had a Volkswagen GTI, and like we'd stay up all night, like smoking everything. And then red eye it to like our gig with like this GTI packed to the gills with Cambros and all of our serving equipment. And like I'd have like buns on my lap and he'd have like the folding table shooting next to him, and we'd be racing to our event. And I told him, I was like, dude, this needs to be a fucking Volkswagen ad. Like we're pushing this thing to to its outermost limit. So yeah, that was a critical stage for us too, because then we started monetizing it. And we started getting some really good feedback, and again, just like feeling really confident with the food. And we were smoking. You'll never guess. We had upgraded from the Weber now to a 1940s General Electric refrigerator that had been gutted, racks installed inside, and a firebox on the bottom. So it was a vertical smoker and a little chimney stack on the rooftop. Okay. I've got it on the other side of my house right here. I'll have to walk over and show you. But
I think there's someone like Dr. Howard Conyers, who is like a rocket scientist and a barbecue guy, and I think his dad did this. Like this is like 60 years ago or something. He did something like that too. Like some kind. That sounds so similar.
Well, we found it on Craigslist down in like Los Angeles, and like we needed to volumize, but I wasn't really. I also wanted to. I knew at that point I was over charcoal, and it was time to start using wood, like full on. We found this unit down in LA. The guy had like been cooking ribs on it, and I was like, "Well, can you cook brisket on it?" He's like, "I don't know. I never have the time." But it had like 6 racks inside, so we were filling it up with 5 or 6 briskets at a time.
Holy hell, that's so cool. Can you
wait till you see this thing, man?
Send me some photo.
I will, dude. I will. I mean, it's right on the other side of my house, but it's beat up now. She's had a long run. A lot of flare-ups, it caught fire a few times. At like 3 a.m. Grease fires. Those vertical ones are scary though, because the grease fires are scary on those, because everything's dripping on top of it. It becomes and with like a hack weld job, and it's just something's going to be leaking somewhere. So that was my next purchase was a fire extinguisher after that. Which I should have had.
I thought you were going to say my next purchase was a certain type of pit. You're like, it's a fire extinguisher.
I have a fire extinguisher for that thing.
It's a smart choice.
But yeah, so we were running this catering company, and we did really well. And we, like I say, we were bouncing all around town, and like it was this very like spirited, collaborative thing. Like I said, a lot of different breweries, wineries, restaurants, like everyone's just like really supportive. So we fostered some really great relationships there.
What were you guys called at the time?
At the time, it was called 805 Smoke Company.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember seeing that online.
I still love that name. It was like it was so rad. And then I kind of went dark for a little bit at that point, where I was dealing with some family shit, and unfair to my friend Mike. Like I kind of like put him in a tough spot. We had just got like a Sprinter van, and we were just getting ready to start like moving up. But like there's something in like I was dealing with some family stuff, and also like I felt like we were moving really fast, and I wasn't like quite confident yet in the food. And I think it's because we didn't really have a pit, like a proper we didn't have a proper pit yet, and it just didn't. There's still so much more for me to learn that I went dark on him, and I had some searching to do on my own,
which happens like totally. In any kind of like I've been there before. I know what it's like. It's a journey. So I had to unplug a little bit, and that's when I started doing a lot of traveling. And for food, I started going to New York a lot. My sister had moved out there. She went to UCSB too, so I'd been going to New York a lot and meeting a lot of chefs and eating. I was going to Charleston a lot. I had some friends out there. Yeah, and then I started taking these ventures out to Austin. And that's when my head exploded. That's when my head exploded, and I was like, holy shit, this is badass. Yeah, there's something different, right?
It was wild, man. And honestly, like my first stop, I'll never forget. I went on like a 4-day tour with my girlfriend at the time, who was like a trooper, because it's like 4 days of barbecue is not easy. on anybody, especially if
No.
you're going to like 3 joints a day.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. Thank you so much, Clark's Oyster Bar in Austin, for saving our lives, man. I think I shed a tear when like I had a bottle of like Shannon and like 12 dozen oysters come in front of me instead of like a beef rib and another Lone Star, dude. I was like, I needed it.
Yeah, that's the first time that place has been shouted out. That place is fantastic.
Yeah, dude. I mean, but it was the contrast that
no,
like,
and it's the it's what
up.
you need for your palate. It's
I needed it.
But
But
what was the first spot? What was that first thing? What was that
first hit? Can you guess what the first hit was? It's iconic.
If it's iconic, it's either Franklin or were you in Lockhart or were you in?
We went to Salt Lick, man. We had to. It was also because we got in the afternoon, and
that's iconic. So the original. In Springs.
And like also coming from like, I don't know, coming from California, man, I don't know better.
Of course.
As advertised, it delivered. It was so good. Thurman's Choice Plate.
Also, the location's cool. Like it kind of feels like to me a little San Ynez-ish kind of like, or kind of like, doesn't it?
I'm gonna bring that. It's funny you said that. I'm gonna bring that story back a little bit later. It's funny that you said that. My trip to Snows was like that's when that light bulb went off. But anyways, yeah, we went to Salt Lake, had a great lunch. Next day, hit Valentina's in the morning.
Nice.
Yeah, we went to La Barbecue.
That was my next guess.
And at that point, Brendan and Dylan were cooking. And those guys showed me such a good time. Granted, I did show up with a 6-pack. But dude, they were so great. They let me into the back. They introduced me to like some of the other guys that they were working with. They were like throwing beef ribs on and they were watching briskets, and like Dylan and Brendan, they were like wide open books. Like I sat there the whole afternoon with those guys and just like asked them.
You could talk to them forever.
Dude, yeah. And like when the beer starts flowing too, like those guys are like so much fun.
They are.
And it started raining later that day, and like Dylan's like, throw on a trash bag, we're doing it. So like we're all covered in trash bag ponchos, like tending the fire, and like my chick, like at the time,
was your girlfriend?
She's like, you're loving this, aren't you? I was like, hell yeah, this is great. So yeah, man, that was a very memorable day, and I also learned a lot that day.
Do you talk to those guys still?
Dylan, sometimes I'll shout him out. I know he's out in Colorado, like on the ranch, like fucking hanging fences and roping.
That's so wild.
And Brennan, like, Instagram,
he's a busy guy. He has a kid.
Shout out. Yeah, he's got a kid. I will shout out back and forth. But like, I used those guys for a while afterwards as soundboards for shit. Like if I was trying to troubleshoot, like I said, those guys were huge and like helping me get a firm understanding of like what I needed to be doing.
Wow. Did you go to like Micklethwaite and?
Well, yeah, went to Micklethwaite, loved it. Did Franklin's, loved it.
Terry Black's maybe just to get
did a chance. Terry, but yeah, that was on a separate trip. But we did. We also did on that trip Curlin's, which was suggested by Dylan and Brendan.
Okay.
And that was fabulous.
It's like the sleeper, like I think.
Dude,
still
that and Micklethwaite, man, like those places are great. But then I'd go back and I'd take like just day trips on my own. I'd fly from California into Texas like on a whim. Yeah, I'd hit like Louis Mueller's was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going there and I was like, this, like that really set the tone for me on like what the feel should be for a space.
Yeah.
Because it was, that place is just such a time warp.
Yeah. And they're so consistent. Then they've been consistent.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So long. Like
it's amazing. And the quality is so high. Like that place is really an anomaly, man. It's like considering what they're cooking on and like the space and where they're at, like that place is like
one of a kind.
Dude, yeah. Just in general, like from a restaurant perspective, even outside of barbecue, like I hold that like really high up.
Yeah.
Because I'm a sucker for nostalgia. I'm a sucker for like
That's like,
stuff. You know, I'm a sucker for that, man. I'm a sucker for places that like are dedicated and do what they do and are like proud of it.
yeah.
And that are timeless, you know. I
Yeah.
think there's something to be said about stuff that's timeless. There's a lot of like authenticity there. And yeah, and hits on this I took a day trip and hit Louis Mueller and Snows. I hit Snows in the morning, Louis Mueller's in the afternoon. But my drive out to Snows, I was leaving Austin at like I think 4 or 5 in the morning. I think the drive's like 45 minutes from Austin to Taylor. And sun was coming, like barely peaking. It was really foggy out. And as I was driving, I was solo on this one, and I kept looking around, and it's just like oak trees everywhere and cattle and like rolling hills. And for a minute, I felt like I was in the valley here.
Yeah.
It looked just like it. And I was kind of like bugging out. I was like, God, this looks a lot like home. And ended up having a killer time at Snows. Met up with Yoni, who was a very generous host. Shout out Yoni. Thanks again. He introduced me to his friend, Patrick Hernandez.
Cool guy.
Who's, dude, he's a killer. Shout out, dude. What up? Homie. And I got to meet some really great people at Snows. That was an incredible experience as well. I learned a lot at Snows. Snows taught me a lot about like the fraternity of everything and line culture, man. Like,
yeah, that's
Franklin's was great too. Because there was a gentleman working there who was on it, man, like for beers. I'll kind of forget his name, but he was great. But Snows, man, that place is something else because it is just a party. And I remember I got there super early. I was like, I think second in line, and there's some dudes there from like, I think they're from like El Paso or something, and they had their own little barbecue thing, and they were up for the day, and they invited me to sit with them later that day. And I met some dude from like Denmark, you know, and I was like, wow, there's so many people. All 4 corners of the world are here.
There's nothing like that in other types of food. Like there's something really special, and there's something that I've tried to explain. Like my friends that don't like barbecue, like they don't get it. There's something really different, something really special, and Snows epitomizes that for sure.
Man, that was such. I mean, also with the hospitality of Yoni and Patrick, like that definitely made for a pretty great experience. Yeah. So after like taking a lot of trips to Austin and Texas in general, that's when I started getting a better bite for like what I needed to be doing.
Is that when you got the Harper, or I do order that yet?
Yep. So that's when I found Drew on Craigslist because I just searched offset in my local Craigslist classifieds. Just offset smoker every day, bang, 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 bang. And like every once in a while you'd find like this rusted out can. And then I found one of Drew's ads. This was before like it was Harper like Barbecue.
Early days?
I think he was still like working on boats or something like that.
He was making stuff in like a garage, I think, or something, or like a little.
No, this was then. This was like 5 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But there are these little backyard pits. And I was like, oh shit, like this guy, whoever this is, has an eye for it. And he's in California, not far from me. So I remember I linked up, I gave him a call. I was like, hey man, I'm curious in a pit, but I need something bigger. I was like, are you doing anything like larger? He's like, how big? And I said 500. He's like, I got a 650 I was going to build for myself, but you still got your name on it.
Wow.
So yeah, I put down on that, and he turned that over in a couple months, and he came up, dropped it off. He was going to catch some surf too. So he towed it up like a gent. Yeah, man. I was like, dude, yeah, dude, he's awesome. So shout out Drew for dropping the big girl off. I think that was one of his bigger builds at the time.
It sounds like it. I don't think like I'm sure now I'm going to go back and listen to my interview with him, because I'm sure he mentions that somewhere. I'm sure it gets weaved into it somehow.
But when that got delivered, that was really when the bar was set at another level. That really helped me.
But were you still doing little pop-ups or anything? Or were you
So,
still bartending and kind of having this on
so
the
I was,
side? Or?
oh man, yeah, I had a little bit of a work problem there for a while.
It
Yeah,
sounds like,
like 7 days. I mean, I feel like the restaurant kind of sucks you in, because the money's good and you work long hours and it's like fast pace.
yeah,
You got friends. There's always action. So it's like I got caught up in working. I was
it's a
working
rush.
two or three. Yeah, well, yeah. I was working 2 or 3 jobs at one point, running the beverage program at the Lark, and then bartending at Boathouse, and then running the barbecue hustles on the weekend. So I was like burning at both ends. But
How were people finding you? Like, was it just kind of like
so at this point, I kind of after I had taken my hiatus and like started traveling and kind of cooking and doing a little bit of like deep diving, I started to come back out of the woodwork, and I got that pit from Drew. And yeah, I kind of tapped into like all of my old friends, like, a lot of brewery stuff, a lot of collaborative work with chefs like Jason at the Lark. Like he's from Texas, and it was really fascinating. Like our friendship really grew because he did the reverse. He started as like, a Texan barbecue guy, and then read a Thomas Keller cookbook and flipped his whole script,
That's interesting.
and then he moved to San Francisco and started cooking with some greats and found himself wrapped up in this like really like, refined culinary world. But when him and I met, like I come walking in smelling like oak smoke, and like I think something went back off in his head, and he's like, whoa, I need to tap back in. So now we like exchange information every weekend because he's cooking a lot at home. And like he's always recipe testing. The guy is like nonstop.
Did he get an offset too?
Testing. He's working on it, but unfortunately his living arrangement doesn't really like that's the hard part. Like, I got this smoker delivered and I had nowhere to put it.
That was a good question, especially where you are.
Oh, dude, I made a lot of enemies. My neighbors were pissed off because they were already pissed off with the refrigerator. The General Electric, like that thing was just a heaver. And I was, doing this stuff out of my backyard. So like I was running in and out at all hours of the night, smoke going till like 4 or 5 in the morning. Fire department coming by, but luckily they were all my bar patrons. So like they were asking when the food's ready, so
that worked out good.
And, and then environmental health always calling me about smoke complaints, is someone on fire and stuff like that. And, again, these stories, I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure Bert has.
No, I was gonna say this is what I heard from Bert. This is what I heard.
Dude,
from
Bert's probably got. Dude, Bert's probably got 100 of those stories. I mean, I do too, but it's just what it is. Trying to cook in like the suburbs or like in any housing like development is like tough.
Well, look at like Andrew and Michelle. They were cooking in East LA. Like that's in there.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I actually would like, I'd find different houses where people would let me like park it there and cook there. Like my buddy had this big, like kind of like 1/4 acre little drop down lot, and I'd pull it down there, and that lasted a couple months before the neighbors started catching on. And then I had to move and relocate, so it was very rogue, kind of like operation. I had juggled quite a few places. And thank you to everybody who let me park nice. That rusty beast
huge
out
thank
there.
You. Yes.
But yeah, it's funny. I met a great couple, Patty and Kip. There were some bar like friends of mine that would always come in on the weekends, and they're like super fun. And I was kind of explaining to them like my situation, and they were like, "Oh, we've got a parklet for you. That would be perfect." I was like, I didn't even know them at the point. I had just met them like that day. It was probably like our second or third drink. And I was like, man, really? And they're like, yeah, just come on, drive on over, come check it out. So they had this like really great, like they lived in this cul-de-sac and this little like overhang parklet thing that fit the smoker snug right under. And they're like, you can leave it here as long as you want. Cook, come in and out. Like they've become like, parental figures
Wow.
to me, man. They've just been super supportive. They came and picked up barbecue last weekend, actually. So they're still.
What's a parklet? I'm like,
Well,
am
like,
I an idiot? I think I feel stupid.
well,
Is it like a?
I mean, it's like a
It sounds like a term that I
like a
should know.
large gazebo. You know, you build like a big overhang.
Right
Like
for
it's not a
like.
garage. It's not a garage, but it's like an outdoor like garage. You
So is it
know,
for like
made out
usually
of.
for like RVs and stuff usually or something? Or
Yeah, I mean, yeah, or like just like additional
boat?
parking. You know, it's like normally made out of wood.
Yeah.
It's a big structure. Normally, people have like foliage or like vines growing through them.
Yeah. I
I
probably
don't
see.
know. Maybe it's
I'm sure I've seen it, but I'm just like this is the term I haven't heard. So I
yeah.
figure maybe there's 3 other people that are listening that don't know what that is too.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like 2x6s, like
Yeah.
going up and around in succession, you know, to create this little like kind of like parking space. But anyways, it fit the smoker great.
Perfect.
They let me rock
That's rad.
back there for like a year and a half.
Wow.
And that's when I dug out a lot of work there and did a whole bunch of stuff with JP at the Lark. I did a bunch of like collaborative dinners there and 4th of July parties, all kinds of stuff. And it's great working with him because he, again, chef background and wants to add look at it from a different perspective than just like beans and coleslaw. You know what I'm saying? Like we're doing lamb ribs and, you know, all kinds of cool creative stuff. But yeah, so I was at Patty and Kip's house for a while, and it was all very underground at the time, and I was just doing stuff to like be busy and cook. I just wanted to get my reps in.
Yeah.
And make a couple extra bucks. And it really started to take.
And what were you called at this time? Were you called?
No, nothing. It really didn't have a name. It was all under my Instagram guys, and like if you knew, you knew, and like
it's just really actually really cool.
Yeah, really just what it was.
Fun.
And yeah, but people would show up and we'd sell out, and you know, the idea of scarcity is like another lesson learned there. And like that's why like the whole culture, it just works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just works. Yeah, that's when I really kind of started cutting my teeth and, you know, roadshow, if you will.
How did you connect with Bells then?
Oh man, a good friend of mine, Adam Shoebridge, who's a good buddy and talented chef, was getting ready to work for them, I think, as an executive sous. And I was like, where are you working? He's like, oh, I'm going to be up in Los Alamos at this French bistro called Bells. And I was like, why? I was like, cause he like, I don't know. He's from North Carolina and he's like worked with Sean Brock. He's worked in Hong Kong. Like It just didn't seem like in his wheelhouse. And I was like, why? He goes, oh man, they're just great people and they cook great food. And the chef's, you know, a badass and it's a good spot. So he had introduced me to Greg and Daisy. And you know, it's funny, like right when I met them, they're like, oh yeah, you're the barbecue guy. We know you. You know, you just kind of the moniker, you know, you just the smoke, you know, always trails behind to some degree. So we had met casually, and then I was doing a pop-up at a friend's coffee shop one day, and I had a friend bring over some croissants. She was French and baked some croissants that day and brought some over, and I slapped some brisket in it, and I sent a picture to Greg, who is one of the owner and operators, and I said French barbecue collab, and he was like, hell yeah, let's do it.
That's cool. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's kind of how the ball started rolling, and he was really inspired by like the Joe Beef like cookbook, his like big outdoor barbecue cookbook. It was like this very French inspired like barbecue book. It's great. So that was kind of like his vision. For our first meeting, he wanted me to do their 2-year anniversary they're having in March of 2019.
Okay.
So if you can see where this is headed,
it's always headed this way.
You can see where this is headed. The party was on March 15th of 2019, which was the same day that Gavin Newsom shut down California and everything started going haywire.
Yeah, upside down and backwards. And
yeah, it's crazy. And it was a really like surreal event for everyone, because it was like all of their friends and family and like winemakers in the area, chefs, restaurateurs, all these cool creatives were like hanging out and like celebrating their 2 years. And I'm out there on the street like cooking. I think we were doing like, I smoked lamb shank and sausages that day for them. Little platters for everyone. We had just wine popped everywhere. Daisy did like all these really beautiful sides, and we had this whole thing lined up. There's just this really strange air kind of hanging over everyone, because there's just so much unknown with what was going to come. Is this going to be a week? Is this going to be a couple of months? Is this going to be a couple of years?
Yeah, like, is this the end of time? Yeah, like
yeah, it really, everyone was pretty shook at that point. So after that event, I kind of like had a recap with Greg and Daisy, and I was like, you know, I'd love to come back and cook. I had a great time. I love the environment. I love the atmosphere. And it's really funny looping back to Snows. It really does look a lot like up here. Like it's really it's just uncanny how the resemblance of the two, you know, just rolling hills, cattle, horses, you know, the whole nine.
It's really beautiful up there. If you haven't been up past Santa Barbara, people, if you're listening, you should. Like, I hate to say should, because I don't want to force people, but it's a good idea to go up there, because it's different. It's a lot. I think the topography, everything changes once you get outside of LA, get past Camarillo and get past Carpinteria. Like, it's just, it's nice.
Yeah, man. I like to say it's like, it's true, like California heritage at its finest.
Yeah.
Like, it really is, man. You get a serious grip of what California was, you know, 100 years ago.
Definitely.
It still holds on to a lot of that. But anyways, I asked them, I was like, yeah, I'd love to come back and cook. And they're like, we'd love to have you. And Greg and Daisy, being like very clever and very intelligent, both coming from like really great F&B backgrounds. They just know how to like stay on their toes and stay dynamic. And that's exactly what happened. So like the minute that the shutdown started happening, like they shifted gears into like these takeaway meals. And I was doing the same already in Santa Barbara. I was beginning to do that in Santa Barbara at a friend's brewery, Third Window, where I would do these, like, you know, advertise these packs of barbecue for like 4 to 6 people. You know, it was like a pound of brisket, pound of ribs, pound of pulled pork, couple different sides. Yeah. Curbside pickup, you know, pre-order ahead of time.
You were doing that pre-pandemic?
No. This was all came to formation as the pandemic began.
As things were rolling.
So yeah, my head started shifting. Like, so as the pandemic hit, like things started shutting down. I had to like kind of make an assessment of how to like stay alive, I guess, from a business standpoint. And I started doing these like packaged, like curbside pickup meals out of Third Window Brewing. Shout out to Chris and the whole team at Third Window. These beer packages too. So you get like a 4-pack Pilsner with like your, you know, pack of barbecue. I was getting ready to start doing these like, you know, rotisserie chicken dinners and like all these like, you know, family sized meals to kind of keep their momentum going. And he asked if I would come up and kind of like give the staff a little break and like maybe offer barbecue for one of the weekends. Right. So that's what we continued to do for the next year, is like, we just started offering these big pre-order barbecue pickups up at the restaurant. And that's how our relationship really started to take off.
But people were probably down for that, right? Because
yeah, I mean, it was experimental. I had a feeling that like it was just the good right timing too. I was kind of getting sick of like Santa Barbara and like all the feedback I was getting, not necessarily from people, but circumstances, you know, just like Bert or Andrew, I'm sure, kind of got frustrated at one point, and they tried to scratching their heads trying to figure out where they could go. And it's great. It's just the open outdoors out here, and people like appreciate wood-fired cooking. They appreciate, they want it, you know. The romanticism is still alive, and it became a really nice transition. And I just kept cooking barbecue out here, and they kept wanting to support it, and now we've built like this really great partnership.
When did you start doing the every Saturday thing? Is that when that's?
So we did the to-go meals for about a year, But then Labor Day of last year, 2020, is when we kind of like broke off and started serving barbecue in the street right out front of the restaurant.
Okay.
And I'd be parked out there overnight and doing my thing. And it became this really cool, like, hangout, like, you know, because I'd be out there Friday night, the staff would get off, they'd come out and have a beer with me.
Oh, that's so cool.
The locals would be like walking by, and I can't help myself being a bartender. I just start chatting it up with everybody walking down the street. You know, it was a great opportunity for me to get to know the community, the Los Alamos community. Small town, small cowboy town, but I got to know everybody pretty quick because I was just that kind of like lone gun, like midnight rambler, Smokey Joe type.
Yeah,
right?
like I think it's like probably something like this mythic thing that you're like, what is going on over here?
Yeah, a lot of questions, but it was great. So like Labor Day of last year is when we decided to kind of like jump off and make it at least a somewhat of a regular thing. It was just like first come, first serve, get it while you can. And that was really interesting because it was like trying to teach, or not teach, but trying to show like this new culture of like waiting in line. It's just it's been a crazy roller coaster, man, honestly. But
so when did the Saturday, the morning kind of morning barbecue thing pop up? And then when did you change to do it? When did you actually call yourself Priedite?
Pre-Diet Barbecue.
Pre-Diet.
Yeah, it kind of stayed under my like kind of like weird underground barbecue guys for a couple of months, and then in like collaborating with Greg and Daisy, like we kind of helped shape it for what it is now, and really start to focus on branding and things like that. So we got some great branding going, and some people helping us out with like some art curation.
Yeah, who does that? That stuff's rad. That stuff, like your Instagram stuff, is so cool.
Yeah, that's Roxabox Cisco, Graham, and shout out. Hey, like you pitch, we've been pitching them these ideas, you know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, say the name again because I don't want to lose it. Yeah,
can you hear me? Yeah, Roxabox and Studios, San Francisco.
Okay.
How about now?
Yeah. Roxabox and Studios. I heard that.
Yeah. Roxabox and Studios in San Francisco. Shout out to Graham and Libby, but they're great. They do a lot of the work for Bell's. And they're super creative. And Libby took on recently, we've been kind of giving them this general aesthetic. Like I really like the use of the Old English, because I see it a lot here in like Solvang, San Ynez.
Okay.
It's very classic. Even the elementary school in Solvang is in Old English. Like it's just a very, just a very classic thing. It's just like I'm just trying to like incorporate the environment, you know. Somewhat into like what we're doing. The artwork is great. It's all just like old like Library of Congress stuff that we slap some text on. So it's all Maine. Recently I've been kind of geeking out on some Roy Lichtenstein like pop art stuff.
That would be interesting.
Libby did those really badass like neon like like those most recent ones have been these like neon posters, which are so great because I like, kind of give this like pop art like Lichtenstein Warhol vibe, and she just like nailed it. So it's just fun, like creative kind of art.
You're having fun. You're being creative.
Like advertise these like breakfast barbecue gigs we're doing.
Nice. So if someone, so number one, how far away is it from Santa Barbara or from Solvang?
So from Santa Barbara, I feel like door to door it'd probably be like an hour and a half.
Okay.
So it's a pretty good stretch. We're out in the sticks.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like what we're going for.
But it's like, cool. We driving up there is great.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, it's wine country, man. So all you get is, like I said, cattle and like and vines, and it's like I said, quintessential California. But it's a beautiful drive, and we're going for like, you know, off the beaten path a little bit. Like, you know, taking the trip out. Like I said, the inspiration is like places like Snow's and Louis Mueller's.
Yeah.
Where like you take this like excursion out to some like old rail town and have this like incredible experience.
That's ideal.
Yeah. So I feel really lucky to be in this space, to have Greg and Daisy on my back. Also to have like my counterpart, Brendan, who I worked at Boathouse with for a majority of those years. He was my GM there. And now he's like my partner in this whole thing.
Oh, that's rad.
So like our squad is just like super tight right now, and I feel super fortunate where we're at. So
what's your menu generally?
Right now, brisket, ribs, pork shoulder, and we're making our own sausages.
Right.
Kind of like a ode to the linguiça. Again, kind of like going to that Portuguese kind of like heritage. As for our sides, doing a fennel jalapeno slaw. Really like using fennel because it just grows everywhere out here, and I feel like it's pretty indicative to the area. And like with jalapeno, it's just a nice, like, refreshing take on, you know, a classic staple. So it's not as weighty as, you know, kind of like the classic like mayonnaise slaw.
Mm-hmm.
We do a potato salad with buttermilk vinaigrette and roasted poblanos. We make our own tortillas out of our rendered beef fat. Nice. Which has become a practice in itself. Honestly, man, like that has become a huge study for Brendan and I. A lot of details. Baking's a whole different world. And it's been a lot of fun. And I'm really happy with where they're at. And it took us a while. It took like 6 months of some serious like R&D to get them where they're at now. But
wow, yeah, I saw that on your menu.
We do couple different pickles. Right now we're doing one with Fresno chilies, radishes, and red onion.
All right. That's cool.
Yeah, which is great. Kind of like a spicy kind of radish pickle. We do these like Oaxacan style black beans. Because on that hiatus that I had taken, I spent a couple months in Mexico, in Oaxaca, making mezcal with Del Maguey, which was an insane experience.
Oh, that's another story right there.
That's a dude. Well, yeah, right. Well, yeah, actually,
part 2.
Yeah. I'm working on this little piece right now, like on like the parallels between barbecue and mezcal. It's pretty interesting, man. Like that's for a whole nother talk, but it's kind of fascinating. But anyway, so we took like, you know, I'm taking a little bit of like my background and my travel. So the beans are definitely like in the same ration as I found like when I was down in Mexico.
That's cool.
But yeah, and then we do a couple different fermented hot sauces. Probably a 6 to 8 week ferment, like lactose. One of them's a ginger or a carrot, habanero, Fresno garlic, and then another one's scallion, serrano, and jalapeno.
Wow, is this like for taking a nod from Renee, or is that just?
Well, more so a nod from Sean Brock via
Sean Brock, okay.
My friend Adam Shoebridge.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
because our recipe is really kind of rooted in his method. Lacto, I guess now is a Rene Redzepi term, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I know that funny. Yeah.
You ferment it. It's a Rene thing.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
But no, it's actually yeah, fermented hot sauce, very very akin to like what you'd find at Husk or something like that.
Wow. And it's right now. It's all pre-order.
Yeah. Right? We're doing both. We do one big like first Saturday, first come first serve. Okay. Normally curated with like a beverage partner, either some friends who own a brewery or some friends who like make wine. So we'll have them come up and like set up a little booth and like pour beer or wine for people, and it becomes a little bit of a party.
Yeah, nice.
Which is great. Yeah. And then we'll throw 2 pre-orders down the last 2 weeks of the month. So we're trying
to is it coming like out on a Wednesday or a Thursday?
The pre-orders released a week ahead of time.
Okay.
Then we do the pre-orders the last 3rd and 4th Saturday of the month, and we'll drop the link the 2nd week of the month. So you get like about a week to a week and a half to, you know, get your orders in for those pre-orders. But it's been nice because the first come first serves are like this really raucous, like wild, like, you know, energy. You know, people are showing up, and it's at 9 a.m. So like people are dedicated, and it's pretty insane to watch now, because like being the person who's waited in line at all these places, to have people now showing up with chairs and coolers and stuff, like for us,
such a cool feeling.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And people love it. And like, we even get people now who call, like, they're like, yeah, I pre-ordered, but you know, can we still line up and hang out? You know, like they still want to party. Which is exactly like kind of what we've been setting out to do, is like creating this this environment that's bigger than the food, creating something that's like hospitable and
experiential and
totally. So, but we're trying to balance it out. Not everyone can start drinking beer at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. Some people have lives, kids, and other things to do. So the pre-orders are nice because it helps us with waste, and it helps everyone be a little bit more coordinated.
Probably helps you planning in the planning portion of it too, right? Like you can plan ahead a little better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on the back end, it's great because I know everything I needed. Everything. There's no guessing.
Yeah.
And the hardest part, honestly, is like selling out, and then I got people still waiting, and we do this thing called taco hour when we get to like, kind of when I'm pinching down to my last bits. I kind of just holler and I say, you know what, everyone's getting a free taco, like pulled pork taco, and then whatever sides we got left.
That's nice. Like this feels very different. It feels different, especially different than what I've seen in California. Is there anything else that's even remotely like this in Central California?
I don't know. I haven't really seen it.
Like maybe in some guy's backyard that we don't know about, but
for sure he might be your next interview. But but no, up here it's really cool because it's all these old vintage steakhouses.
Yeah,
like Jocko's and Hitching Post and Cold Springs and stuff. So what we're doing is I think style wise quite a bit different because we're kind of like incorporating that line culture. And I think that's like something that people have now like adopted and become to enjoy. So I think it's a pretty new concept, I feel like, for up here, and it's people have been having a great time with it.
Are you getting a lot of people from Los Angeles coming out?
Yeah, it's been great.
That's cool.
LA and from the Bay who are taking a trip down. They'll stay at, there's a couple of great hotels up here in Los Alamos, the Skyview and the Alamo Motel. Okay. And people come, and it's great. What they'll do, most people like come on Friday, get their room, have dinner at Bell's, and then the next morning wake up and hit us for barbecue.
That is perfect. That's what I was going to ask you what the perfect experience would be like.
That is the real hit. Like if you come on Friday,
okay, this is what I'm going to do.
And get a reservation at Bell's, have dinner, and then stay the night across the street, and then come back in the morning for some barbecue and beers. And that's really the 1-2 punch.
Okay.
And then Friday nights have become quite a little hangout for us.
I was gonna say you're cooking up.
Right? Yeah, so that's become quite a little hangout for us. So it's become a notorious locals hang.
Nice.
As I'm like kind of wrapping and getting into the final push of the cook, people kind of BYOB, and
nice.
Sometimes we've been known to smash some burgers.
That's cool.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Have you heard of this guy John Truxell?
Trox?
I'm kidding,
dude. Trox has been around our spot a few times, man. We love Trox.
Yeah, he's
Shout out, John, man. You're the man.
Yeah, I love John. Such a great guy. He's like a mentor to me. Like he's taking me under his wing to kind of play around with the camera, and he's a stud. He's a cool guy.
Energy through the roof.
Passion. Such passion. Loves food.
John's a great guy. But yeah, he's been up quite a few times to shoot Bell's and barbecue.
Isn't there a certain farm that you guys use a lot?
Yeah, we love Daisy fostered a great relationship with the Finleys.
Okay.
Yeah, Johanna and Chris, and they grow some beautiful produce. Right now, the jalapenos are blistering hot, but they're so good.
Which is interesting because I think they've dumbed them down for the supermarkets out here because they're like, it doesn't taste like it used to when I was a kid. It's different.
Well,
it's
dude,
like
commodity produce, man, is like, and that's the other thing. Being out here is we have like a huge bounty.
Yeah, it's
so like, yeah, like the fennel for our slaw is like comes from the Finleys, and the jalapenos, and when we can get cabbage when it's in season, all that stuff. Like we're doing smoked like elote specials the past couple months because they had these like insane like mixed kernel cobs coming in.
I love those. Just
so
to
it's
look
nice.
at you.
I know, but it's nice, man. It's very inspiring being here because you're surrounded by like all these great farmers and like winemakers and chefs. And it's like a pretty great community from a culinary standpoint.
And people should go up there not just because of like just to visit you, but I think it'll open their mind to what California really is about and what it has to offer. And it'll be a nice change of pace for a lot of people. I think it would be really important to do it.
Yeah, there's a guy that just moved into town, and I remember this was just a couple weeks ago. He comes like kind of shuffling over. He still had his like slippers on and like some sweats and like some t-shirt, and he had a cup of coffee, and look how he'd come walking from around the corner, and he's like, "Hey man, what's going on here?" And I'm like, "Oh, we cook barbecue, man. We're just getting ready." He goes, "Oh, cool." And I'm like, "Where are you from?" Like, he goes, "Oh, we just moved here from Los Angeles last night."
Last night. Nice.
And I'm like, "Yeah, you look a little shell-shocked." He goes, "Man, I haven't had that good a night's sleep in 20 years.
Oh shit. Oh,
And we just got to rapping a little bit, and like he, worked in Los Angeles for most of his life, and he wanted to kind of make a shift and unplug. And, since then he's like been loving this, the new lifestyle. So yeah, it's
probably
really,
actually see stars at night and stuff.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's pretty special out here. And it's definitely, if you get barbecue, would love to see you. But even just experiencing what California has to offer, it's really funny type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Are you running a Cold Springs Tavern?
Everything you shout out, love them.
That's awesome.
Love Cold Springs. Love it.
That drive to it too is cool. Like with this coming from the south.
Best.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The bridge and
yeah, man. Yep. I love hanging out there. I go there as much as I can.
Nice.
Shout out to Rhonda. She's been pouring me DBAs and shots of wild turkey for years.
Well, we'll have to meet there sometime for sure. What are all the different ways people can get a hold of you?
Instagram is the best channel. Okay. We go through that the most in promoting like our next events and things like that. Also, if people like to hit me up for like questions on like their own home cooking and troubleshooting, like I'm always down to talk about that. Even though it sounds like Jerby's got that on lock.
No, he doesn't have time for every human. There's so spell the name.
Priedite.
And that is
Priedite.
Okay. And it's there's always a link off of Instagram for pre-orders or for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Once we start promoting the pre-order, the link will be in the bio. We start marketing like at least a week in advance for like the first come. Like if it's someone's first time, like I'd honestly try and hit the first come first serve because it is just too much fun.
Yeah.
Pack a cooler with you and just like get to know the community a little bit.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. This is like we could have talked. Honestly, there's like a lot of things I want to hit. So maybe we'll do a part 2, maybe in person or something.
Totally. Yeah, I'm totally game with that. Yeah, because there's a whole nother bit.
Yeah.
Especially with this new 1,000-gallon that we've got from our friend Cam, and we've really upgraded quite a few things. So we're really setting into our stride right now, and it feels pretty good.
Nice. Well, I caught you early in your trajectory, and then we'll continue this. We'll maybe catch up in a couple months or 3 months, 4 months, and then also I'll come visit. But thank you so much for taking the time. And from afar, I love what you're doing. I love the aesthetic. I love the style. I love the food that you're putting out. It looks fantastic, and it's a cool vibe. It just seems like something that I think a lot of people, if they don't know about you, hopefully from this they'll get to know you better and want to come up and visit you or come down and visit you.
Yeah. Either way, man, we'll be out there.
Or come sideways from.
Or nice pun.
I didn't mean
nice
to even.
One. There you go.
I hate to say. Oh, shit.
Nice one.
I didn't want to weave that in. That's terrible.
Nice.
I might have to do some clever editing right there.
Yeah, leave me to my. You can leave me to my Merlot now.
Exactly. Yeah, enjoy.
We'd love to see anybody wants to come out, and it's a pretty special place. And like I said, we have a really solid crew out here.
Nice. Look forward to meeting all you guys.
Yeah, I'm firing up the pit tomorrow morning.
Nice. Well, enjoy.
Yeah, right back in the driver's seat.
That's right. It doesn't end. All right, cool. Well, it was good. It was very nice to meet you, Nick. And I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you soon.
Yeah, Kevin. Thank you. Thanks for what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Bye.
Yep.